It's the Cinnamon. A
We're back.
total, yes, 14 days or 14 minutes has passed since we last recorded an episode of Cinnamon. But we are here for you on that. We make your Mondays better, man. We start your week off on, well, yes, this is a Monday, by the way. We start your week off on a high note.
I think it was Albert Einstein that said that time is relative, that it all depends. So we
I do.
can't tell our Mondays from our Sundays or 14 days from our 14 minutes. But we're together. That's what matters.
That's what matters. I do believe it was
Together.
great poet Seal that once said, "Time keeps on slipping into the future."
You're talking about the musician.
The musician Seal, yes.
Have you seen that video
No.
where someone cut together Seal singing "Kiss from a Rose"?
No, no, Jesus. The
I will
internet
find
has
it
no
for
respect.
you.
No respect.
Oh, no, I was worried that it wouldn't be respectful. It is hilarious. It's "Kiss from a Rose" by Seals.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Sir, how are you?
Oh, great. I am great. Any chance I get to talk with you, it just brightens my goddamn day. So I will take it. Which, by the way, for anyone that does think that previous joke would be disrespectful to Seal, make sure to go watch Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping. Seal is hilarious in that movie. Have you seen it?
No, I have not. I have not.
Oh,
that's a Sandberg joint, right?
Oh, that movie is amazing. They get attacked by wolves, and Seal's like, "Go over here, dude. What about you?" He's like, "How do you think I got these scars?"
Wow. Wow.
Oh, I love that movie. And, of course, our son, Connor, loves the first song you hear, which is called Humble. And when I say, of course, you wouldn't understand, so I'll explain. What's that kid's name? Sandberg. He plays a character whose name is Connor, but his hip-hop name is Connor for Real.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's no surprise that our son, Connor, would love a song called Humble, which is, in fact, not at all. You, sir, have now been challenged. I'm writing this down so I don't forget. Pop Star for Daryl. It's kind of a musical episode. I know how you feel about those, but think of it like if you've seen Spinal Tap, it's in that vein.
Okay.
But with also, I shouldn't say, but with an incredible list of comedians, Spinal Tap has an incredible list of comedians as well. But think of it as a more modern version of Spinal Tap.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a mockumentary. Just, it is so fucking funny. And if I didn't already own it, I probably would have bought the Shout Factory Collector's Edition that comes in a wonderful steelbook that the artwork is just beautiful. It's truly beautiful with giant bees all over it. And that only makes sense if you've seen the film. So how are you doing?
Oh, man, doing pretty good. Hanging in there. Still working a lot. And that's about it. That's about it. I have officially, by this point, retaken over Paprika, the main flagship show. I am math 6 maybe episodes into that by that point.
Math 6 maybe?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure math wise how many weeks off the top of my head we are into this. But yes, I'm well into season 14 of Paprika. So that's been my main focus lately.
Right on. So you probably haven't had much time for anything else, really. I think on our last show you talked about a similar situation where it's sort of been work, sleep, bathe, eat, repeat.
Yeah. And then throw Paprika in there. I had to figure out how to re-massage a weekly show into my normal routine because it had been a little while since I'd done Paprika. So it took some get back into the swing of things.
Is it feeling good though, being back on that horse? Of all the horses you could be riding, is the Paprika horse feeling pretty good?
No. Because a show that is about the latest pop culture news in a time where there is not a whole lot of pop culture news because everything is on hold makes it parts of the show a bit of a struggle to do. But
Yeah, I know.
you
Yeah.
just kind of make do with what you got, I guess. Like everything is all the stuff that you can do, like decide to do a movie and sign the contract, and that's the news. So and so is signed on to such and such, and that's
Kate
pretty much
Blanchett is in Borderlands movie.
yeah.
And then
So
that's the entire show. Thanks for tuning into Paprika. That's all we
yeah,
got.
that's like production and all that kind of shit. You can't really nothing to talk about because nobody's producing anything. So it's just working with the tools you have, I guess.
Yeah, which is something that the good news is you're not alone with that. There are some of the CW shows that just recently, as of this recording, were announcing the return to schedule for them. Supernatural, for example, they're just moving the finale, the final episodes to, I think, the fall. Some of the CW shows, because of the schedules, they're only doing what is it? The Arrowverse usually does this big crossover. It's now only going to be 2 of the remaining shows that are going to be involved in it. They're still ironing out which 2, as I recall. I mean, everybody is trying to figure out what's going on, and the new thing right now going to cinema is that the only way that Tenet, for example, is going to hit theaters is if there is 80% of theaters in the country open. It's the only way Warner Brothers is going to release it. And they just recently released Scoob in on VOD and digital. Just recently, Focus Features released The High Note on VOD for rental. You had DreamWorks Animation drop Trolls World Tour, although they're getting into some trouble because apparently the deals for Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake were tied to theatrical, and whoever was in charge of releasing it on VOD may not have talked to them.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, big time. Because when you've got talent that is getting where part of their contract is points on the back end, for example, and I don't know what their deal was, but if that was part of their deal and there is no back end because it was never put into theaters, yeah, you're gonna run into some struggles there. So yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to come up with a pop culture show when this is the situation that we're dealing with. But you're incredibly capable. I'm sure it's going to be entertaining nonetheless.
I'm sure I'll figure out something. What about you, sir? You have officially, if I remember correctly, you are done with the semester grading.
Hell
papers. Yeah! Hey, papers are turned in. That's a good thing.
Yeah. All the grades are turned in, and unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not entirely sure. It depends on how you look at it. There were no classes for me to teach as an adjunct. I'm basically freelance. I can only work when there are students signed up.
Mm-hmm.
And summers are always tricky the last few years anyway. I didn't teach last summer either because there weren't enough students. So the summer I'm not going to be teaching, and we're waiting to see what's in the fall because, CDC is making recommendations, but it's awfully hard to do social distancing when you've got a class of 25.
Yeah,
really
unless that class of 25 is in an auditorium for 500 people, then yeah, it's kind of hard to distance.
A little tricky. So they're still working out those details. But on the one hand, it's great because I get to focus a little bit more on writing. I get to watch more movies, fill some gaps. Last show I talked about watching Paddington 1 and 2. I've been hearing nothing but wonderful things about these films for years. Finally got to watch them. I'm looking forward to finally watching Seventh Seal and Seventh Samurai, which I bought specifically to watch 2 years ago and have still not been able to watch. But I'm finally gonna knock that out. And Hidden Fortress, which I've always wanted to see.
My Twitter nemesis, Dave Gianni, hates Paddington.
What?
With an unbridled passion. Like,
how can you hate this movie? It is nothing but love.
I'm indifferent to it, but just seeing his hatred for it warms my heart and soul.
What?
Yeah.
I am always open to hear other people's thoughts on something. I am now officially curious to find out what those thoughts are. I can't imagine living in a world where someone hated Paddington.
Imagine it because you are living in it.
No, I haven't seen the evidence for myself. It's only rumor and conjecture. It's not real.
Oh, don't worry. Real. I tagged you. I tagged him in your post, so
You
in
did. I've
Twitter.
heard nothing so far.
Yeah, he responded with just an emoji, which
Oh, did he?
gives you, yeah, it was a couple minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Then I have not seen it. I have
Yes,
not seen it. I
but
was trying
yeah,
to think
yeah,
of some other work before we got started with this.
it is good
But
that you have more time
yeah.
to pursue all things related to EOM.
Yeah, and despite what people think, there are still movies coming out, and I'm not just talking about from the studios, and it's not just the home release stuff either. Though, as I understand it, Tigers Are Not Afraid, from what I hear, a wonderful horror film
Hmm.
that hit theaters for a little while, went to Shudder, and I think it's still streaming there. That got a physical release in a collectible steel box. I'm looking forward to finally checking that out. One Cut of the Dead, which I think just was involved with The Last Drive-In, is also getting a physical release in a collectible steelbook. That's coming out in, let me look at my back wall here, the 2nd of June. Hoping to check that one out. There's, let's see, just looking at my wall here, The Vast of Night is
Hmm.
coming out on streaming on the 29th. So by the time this airs, that will have released on Amazon. It apparently got some drive-in releases as well. Debt Collectors, which, if you're not familiar with that one, I haven't seen it yet. Debt Collectors is Scott Adkins, and I forget the name of the other lead actor, but it's directed by Jesse V. Johnson, who's a former stunt person turned director,
Hmm.
directed Triple Threat, directed the first film, The Debt Collector,
Yeah,
has directed a slew of films, a lot of which were with Scott Adkins. That's coming out. You've got Judy and Punch, released by Samuel Golden Films, which is coming out in June. There are still films to be seen.
right.
So if anyone's telling you there's nothing coming out, there are still films because they were made before all of this. They're
Right.
just finding other ways to get released. But one film in particular that I want to talk about, and I think I briefly mentioned a few minutes ago, it's a film called The High Note, which came out 29th, came out on the 29th. It is available just for streaming right now. It is amazing. I was fortunate enough to get a screener that I could watch more than once. And while writing the review, I put on a couple of scenes because of the songs that are in it to sort of, I like listening to the music of a film if I have that ability. It allows me to sort of get back in the feeling of what the film was, helps with channeling my thoughts. Now, this film was written by first time feature writer Flora Greason, and she apparently has experience within the film industry, within the music industry, and as an assistant. And this film is centered on a character by the name of Maggie Sherwood, who is played by Dakota Johnson, who is working for international diva Grace Davis, who is played by Tracy Ellis Ross.
Now I remember seeing the trailer for this.
Yeah, this film's got Ice Cube in it. Eddie Izzard has a minor role. It's a complete scene stealer. It is glorious. It's got Zoe Chow in it, who plays a best friend and roommate for Dakota Johnson. June Diane Raphael, who is another person working for Grace Davis, helping to run the house. She is an absolute scene stealer. And it is just a wonderful damn movie. It was directed by, or is directed by, Nisha Ganatra, if I'm pronouncing that right. She directed Late Night, that came out, I think, last year, featuring Mindy Kaling and Emma Thompson.
Hmm.
I quite enjoyed that film. It's available on Amazon. It was released by Amazon Studios. This one is Focus Features. It is phenomenal. Oh my God. It is a dramedy, and it's really down to earth. The comedy comes naturally. The drama is not overstated at all. It is low stakes, but you feel the emotion that is coming off of them. And in particular, one way I described it, sort of a happy A Star is Born,
Okay.
because you're dealing with Grace Davis, who is not coming to the end of her career, but she's been doing it for so long that she's being approached by Las Vegas. Come do the same show for us every night for 10 years. Stop
Uh,
touring. do this.
The
And then
review.
you've got Maggie, her assistant, who loves Grace, grew up listening to her music, loves her music, feels like Grace should be doing more original stuff, starting to develop her own skills as a producer, which is something she didn't necessarily want to do, and then ends up taking on her own client, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr., who is amazing in this. But he's been amazing in just about everything he's done recently, from minor role in The Photograph to lead role in Loose. But Maggie ends up finding this kid and developing his stuff as a producer. And where the drama comes in, it makes sense for the characters.
Okay.
It absolutely does. And the expected climax has a resolution that is incredibly emotional. It just doesn't have the high charge you would expect, the high drama. It is very normal, it is very natural, and it is so incredibly satisfying that it has become one of my favorite films of the year. And what's particularly interesting is that Tracy Ellis Ross, if you're not aware, those of you that are listening, is the daughter of Diana Ross.
Hell yes, she is.
Yes, she is. And upon finding out about that, apparently she was in Blackish, if I'm remembering that right. I haven't watched the program, but when I heard about it and first heard about Tracy Ross, and now I see, when I found out that she is the daughter. But she's never sung before in a role. This is the first time she's done it, and she was scared to do it. She sounds amazing. By the time this episode airs, they will have released the soundtrack in full. I plan on buying it. It's got Ross singing a couple of songs. It's got Harrison Jr. singing a few songs, as well as some other artists. But the first single that's out right now, Love Myself, is just wonderful, particularly in the scope of the film, in the context of the film. So I cannot recommend that film enough. If you are looking for something, if you're trying to figure out what to watch and you're looking for something new, I'm so sorry people can't see it in the theater. This is something I would want to see in a Dolby, particularly for the musical elements. And the cinematography is just wonderful. The gentleman who did it also did Booksmart. I can't remember his name at the moment. And that was a film that looked sort of hyper-real while also being very grounded. The same thing happens with The High Note. California is sort of romanticized in certain instances, but it also feels very real. And that's hard to pull off. And I can't recommend this film enough. I wish I could see it in the theater. And if you've got a good home theater, perfect. And if you don't, watch it anyway. It'll make you feel good. It'll just make you feel good. So
there it is. I think in times like this, a feel-good movie is not a bad idea.
Not even a little bit. And it is just charming as hell. And again, that scene with Eddie Izzard, you in particular will love it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but you will love it.
All right. All right.
So I guess since you've just been working and that's the big film, I guess it's time to get into today's category.
Yeah. The only thing I've sat down to really watch is Hollywood on Netflix, which was pretty damn good, by the way.
Oh, was it?
I enjoyed it. I'm leaning more now towards the limited series than actual full-on season of television. Get into your story in 7, 8 episodes, 10 episodes, and get the fuck out.
And if you haven't seen it, check out McMillions. Crystal was watching that. If you haven't seen that documentary, it's not Hollywood, which was what, Ryan Murphy? Yeah. And of course, that's got Samara Weaving in it. So for me, that gets me curious. I've heard very mixed things about it, so I haven't checked it out.
Samara Weaving has never looked better than she does in Hollywood.
Oh.
And McMillions is a wild ride too.
Oh, have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Oh, then never mind. I still recommend it, and I've only seen 2 episodes.
It just gets wilder.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
But very cool.
Yeah. So not movie, but I guess movie adjacent is Hollywood.
It is. It's telling the story of Hollywood, though, from what I understand. And I don't know if you have any feelings on this.
It's Quentin Tarantino's Hollywood, put it like that.
Yeah, it's sort of romanticized, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of romanticized. A lot of what ifs. What if things have been accepted earlier in our time period than what actually happened? So a lot of massaging of history going down. Yeah, very, very entertaining. It's one of those sat down to watch 1 or 2, just see what it was all about, and then just watch the whole thing straight through.
So you could have watched a series of films, but instead watched one really long TV show. I understand.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is funny how that works out, though. It always is. Man, I could really watch. I should watch this movie. Yeah, but here's 10 episodes of Sex Education. I should see what they're up to.
Well, we did the little the Paprika watch along to, well, I guess about 4 or 5 weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Which, the Netflix watch party,
Yeah,
which is very fortuitous that it came out right when it came out. And at the end of every single movie, Netflix transitioned straight into the trailer for Hollywood. So it just kept saying it over and over and over again in one day. So I was like, all right, well, let's see what it's all about.
For some reason, I'm feeling like watching this documentary about Hollywood. I don't know why. I just feel
I'd heard nothing about it before this, which is rare that something like this goes completely under my radar. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I watched that preview and I was like, this might be something worth checking out. And sure enough, it was.
There you go. All right. Maybe I'll pop it on one day and find out what the hullabaloo is all about.
There you go. You got time now.
We'll see. But yeah. So for today's discussion, and this is a little bittersweet. Honestly, it's a little sad because I was looking forward to Top Gun Maverick. I really was. And it's now slated for December.
December 23rd.
23rd. That's right. So we'll see what's going on there. I probably still wouldn't trust going to a movie theater just quite yet. So, but we decided that with Top Gun having just come out for the first time on 4K, celebrating its upcoming release of Top Gun Maverick, that we would discuss today Tom Cruise films, the films of Tom Cruise, which are, some people take some and leave others, but you can't argue with the varied content that he has. I mean, he started off doing films like Taps and Risky Business before he jumped into Cocktail and The Color of Money. And this is a guy who's got stuff like Vanilla Sky, Valkyrie, Jack Reacher 1 and 2, though personally I like the first one more than the second one, Oblivion, which it's interesting that director is the one doing Maverick, The Last Samurai, War of the Worlds, Magnolia, Tropic Thunder, and that's only just a handful of his films. He does all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he does. He varies the spectrum. Old Joel Weinstein over there is trying to get me to rewatch Oblivion, and I'm like, I gotta have a lot of time on my hands before I sit down and rewatch that movie.
I missed it in theaters, and because of the people that I trust having a similar response, I've never checked it out.
It affected me negatively enough that when Edge of Tomorrow came out, I was like, another Tom Cruise sci-fi joint? I don't know about this. I'll go watch if nothing else is happening. And
I love everything about Edge of Tomorrow, but the ending. The ending upsets me so greatly it makes no sense.
All right, fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Have you seen Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah, I've seen Edge of Tomorrow, man.
Well, just checking. Because it's something about, I have no problem with the reset, but it resets him past where anything happened.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Well, let's get into it. My number 3 is Edge of Tomorrow.
Nice segue.
Yes.
Nice segue.
Rewatched it recently for an upcoming project. This movie, I often say that there are much better video game movies that exist than actual video game movies. One of those is Edge of Tomorrow. The other one's Dread.
So good, Dread.
So
good.
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. I think this is the first pairing between old Doug Liman and Tom Cruise. I think they also went and did American Made together, which is also a fairly enjoyable film as well.
Haven't seen that one.
American Made it's basically a dramedy. It's fun, it's light, it's breezy, and Tom Cruise looks like he's having fun. And one thing I like to see is, if it's going to be a fun movie, I like to see my actors and actresses having fun. Like Ocean's 11, you can tell they're having fun while doing it. Tom Cruise is that in American Made. It's good for 1 or 2 watches. Edge of Tomorrow, wonderful performance by Tom Cruise, a wonderful concept. They do believe it is the first time I experienced Emily Blunt in a film. And I was like, all right, who's she? I like her. and went and checked out some other stuff that she's done based off of the strength of her performance in Edge of Tomorrow. You know, it's just a wild concept, and then just the wildness surrounding the movie. Like, who changes a title? I guess besides Birds of Prey, who changes the title after it's already been released, and that just led to the air of mystique and weirdness about the film. The action is wonderfully on point in this. This is some well shot, well directed action, and this is, as far as I can remember, the second movie in which Tom Cruise puts grenades in something and then releases it for the pins to come falling out of his hand, which he also does in War of the Worlds, I do believe. It's man, if you haven't seen it, just tomorrow, get your life together. And if science fiction is your thing, and if action is your thing, then likely you've seen this movie. But if you are, for whatever reason, Tom Cruise adverse, which some people are, put that aside and just enjoy the crazy ride. It's interesting in the sense that we know him as leading hero Tom Cruise. So to see him start the movie off as pansy little punk Tom Cruise, and then eventually transition into what we know as Tom Cruise, it's nice to see, if only for a brief 30 or so minutes, that side of him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I haven't read the comic that it's based on. And I think the change in title had more to do with the marketing, because they were marketing it in the trailers, Live, Die, Repeat.
Yeah.
And so that's what everybody was looking for, was where's that movie Live, Die, Repeat? So yeah, I have the movie downstairs and it says Live, Die, Repeat underneath the name. So
yeah, I guess
bind them together.
Yeah, it became the title of the movie. It just became the tagline of the movie, which is weird.
Well, it's what people remember. I mean, it's sort of like Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. That's more or less what people remembered, instead of Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, which I get why they did the title. That's a whole other conversation. But with Edge of Tomorrow, it's just one of those things where you market it as one thing. That's what got drilled into people's heads.
Right on.
It is a fantastic film. Emily Blunt is amazing in it. And I think because of that, it's why she was able to get action roles after that, because she had done dramatic work, period pieces, some lighter comedy stuff. But here you get to see her whoop some ass. And it's because of that film. I sometimes wonder what Black Widow would have looked like if Emily Blunt had done the role.
I am much more satisfied with ScarJo as Black Widow personally, but in that vein, I am campaigning for Emily Blunt hard to be my Sue Storm for the Fantastic Four whenever they do enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hopefully,
is that because you want John Krasinski to be Mr. Fantastic? That's a little on the nose, man.
It's very on the nose, but it also just happens to work very well. I mean, it's to the point now where Reed Richards in the comics looks a lot like Tom Krasinski does.
I mean, if it worked for Sam Jackson.
If it worked for Sam Jackson, somebody's like, look, man, how can I figure out a way to get Krasinski in this world? And it wasn't until after somebody was like, what about Krasinski? And that's when Reed started looking like Krasinski. But Blunt, obviously had an in for the MCU, and it was just a scheduling issue.
Contract, I think.
Was it contract or was it scheduling?
I think it was contract. She had agreed to do, I think, X number of films, and so it was Gulliver's Travels where she had to do it. And yes, scheduling conflicted with when they were shooting Iron Man 2, but there was no way for her to get out of Gulliver's Travels. She had to do the movie.
Contracts, man. I forgot Gulliver's Travels was a movie.
Several facts, just only one with Jack Black and Emily Blunt.
I would like to think that the lines of communication between her and our Lord and Savior Kevin Feige is still open, and hopefully that can translate to bringing her into the MCU. And Sue Storm just happens to fit wonderfully.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting, particularly with all the delays that are happening because of COVID, to see how the MCU is impacted, because they've got to push films back, not just because they have to wait to make them, but now they have to wait to release some others as well. So it'll be interesting to see how will Emily Blunt, forgive me for phrasing it this way, but will Emily Blunt and John Krasinski be in the right mindset or be in the right whatever for when Fantastic Four can finally join the MCU?
It very, very well might age out
yeah.
of those roles, which will be quite unfortunate to see.
Maybe sad.
It will be sad. What is your pick, sir?
I chose a film which is not my favorite of the series, to be honest, but it is so amazing that I had that out of all of them, I had to pick it. It's the Brad Bird directed Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
Mm,
I love the opening sequence in this film when he's not it's after the assassination and sort of the story kicks off. It's well, where is he? Where is Ethan? And it's he's in prison, and he's in prison reportedly for having killed a couple of people, and so they've got to break him out. And when we first see him, you hear this ball bouncing, and it ends up he's broken out some concrete and he's worn it down to use it as a ball. And so in the escape process and him trying to get through the prison to get to his guy to help get that guy out and have him go, all right, light the fuse. And that's when we get our opening Mission Impossible music. It is so much fun. And it speaks to the spirit of the rest of the film, which is a little campy and a little silly as you go forward. Now, of course, it does have the wonderful stunt of him climbing, I forget the building, but climbing.
Burj Khalifa.
Yeah, but climbing on the outside of it. Um, um, the one that follows, which Christopher McQuarrie directed, and I forget is that Rogue Nation? Yeah, yep. Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation tries to do something similar with the underwater sequence, but it doesn't quite measure up to climbing the building, as well as the fact that you've got Ethan going, mission accomplished, as he slams his hand down on the button to stop the bomb. It's like, oh my God, the film started to realize how silly that they could be, but it's also the first time that you start to realize that there is a through line that they are creating.
Yeah.
Because with the third film, that's when we find out that he gets married and it's all wonderful and lovely, and Ethan's retired, but he's sort of back in, but not really. And at the end of Ghost Protocol, you find out that his wife didn't get killed. She was just more or less put in witness protection. And that film ends with the beginning of Ethan's mission for Rogue Nation, where he's first finding out about the Syndicate. And then it really kicks things off in a direction that Fallout takes advantage of wonderfully. So Ghost Protocol is my number 3.
All right. And in that vein, honestly, the last 3 Mission Impossibles all just kind of they all blend into each other. So I had completely forgotten that there's one that he starts in jail. And parts of this one, I'm like, is this? And then even the titles, I get confused in my head because they're all just like 2-word titles. That confuses me. So I never remember which is which in my head or what order they go in or any of that kind of good stuff. And to that vein, that's why my next one is Mission Impossible 1, the best of the series.
Yes, it is.
Before they became action fests, thanks John Woo, this is not the only, but this is the one that actually focuses and concentrates on spycraft. And that's why I enjoy it. It was spycraft over action spectacle. And they've now since graduated to action spectacle. And they throw in like some goofy masks or some weird technology that incorporates a spycraft element. But this, you have old school spy shit happening, enhanced by technology. And you got your double crosses. Who can you trust? Who can you not trust? They use the mask reveal to good effect before that became more of what I feel is a cheap trick when they use it later on down in the series. It's just a good solid. And that was the movie I'm like where he has to use the gum to bust out of there with this meeting from Kittredge.
Oh, such an amazing sequence. And they're bringing Kittredge back.
Which I am so incredibly happy about. Because I'm like, they just keep cycling through bosses movie after movie. If it's not Lawrence Fishburne, it's Alec Baldwin, or it's Angela Bassett. Just give me
Or Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins was the boss in the third one, if I remember right.
Yes, you do remember correct. Nope, second one.
Second one?
Yeah, he is Mission Impossible 2. I do believe that's why they call it Mission Difficult, or it's Mission Impossible, not Mission Difficult. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you. I think that comes from Mission Impossible 2. Okay. What was I going to say? I really enjoyed Kittredge as something of an antagonist. I love antagonists who are actually just people trying to do their actual jobs.
Yeah.
those are some of my favorite foils in films, and that's what Kittredge was. He didn't know what the fuck was going on. He was just a man trying to figure out what his job was, and I thought they played off each other very well. So I'm incredibly excited to see him come back. But you get that plate glass window, that aquarium or whatever it was exploding out, and that's the first time I was like, "Oh, this motherfucker can run!"
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I
he's
was
been
like,
running ever since.
and he's been running ever
Ever
since.
since.
I was like, "This has got to be like a stunt double or something like that." Now that dude puts feet on ground very well. Yeah, but Mission Impossible 1, I think, is still the best of the series, and is the one that I go back and revisit the most.
Right on. Yeah, it's that film, I think, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. I agree with you. One thing that doesn't age as well is the masks, because they didn't have the technology to do what they do now.
Yeah.
Or even what they did with the third film. I forget what the second one. The John Woo one is less fresh in my mind as some of the others. But Tom Cruise wearing a mask looks like Tom Cruise wearing makeup.
Mm-hmm.
It does. But with the last one, Fallout, I feel like they sort of went back a little bit. That they did use some of that spycraft, who's who, who's what, and we're going to create false sets and go through whole scenarios where stuff has happened, but we're actually tricking you so that you give us the information. Like they use some of that spycraft while also escalating. And the fact that we get, I forget her character's name, I think it's a White Widow, Vanessa Kirby plays, who ends up being a someone who's going to help them, but she's the granddaughter to Max.
Yeah.
I kept waiting the whole movie for her to be like, tell me you know who Ethan Hunt is. Tell me you know who Ethan Hunt is. So I'm hoping some of that gets addressed, if you will, in the next one. But the one thing that's bugged me with the Mission Impossible series that they've sort of gone back to the well with since the first one is the Ethan Hunt is a traitor.
Yeah.
How many times do we need to prove that he is not a traitor for someone to be like, you know what? We keep blaming him, and it's not him. Maybe it's not him this time.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Kittredge is coming back. Maybe he's the one that's fighting for him. Like, hey, he's constantly proven time and time again that while you thought he was out there running wild, he was out there stopping the world from breaking down. How about we just let him do his damn job and give him some resources to do it?
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be nice. Speaking of traitors, I know a lot of people were. Peter Graves was upset that they turned. Name just left me. The original character that John Voight is now playing.
Now that you've said it, I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, that they turned him traitor, and I was okay with that.
It was a
Jim
wonderful
Phelps.
Little surprise. Phelps, yes,
Thank
it was
you.
a wonderful surprise. Actually,
It was.
It bothered me when I saw it in the theater, but rewatching it before Fallout totally works.
I buy bitter old men who were just cynical and jaded by life, and they're like, you know what? I've been doing this shit for too long. I'm going to look out for me for now. That's why I had absolutely no issues with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Bitter old man Luke is what I live for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's enough on Mission Impossible. What is your second pick?
Jack Reacher. Another Christopher McQuarrie, Tom Cruise pairing. I believe this one came out in 2012, and I think that was well before they started working on the Mission Impossible series. Yeah, Rogue Nation was 2015, Fallout is 2018, and then of 8 is coming out sometime. Who knows? But the two of them first started working together with Jack Reacher. I haven't read the books by Lee Child. I am not familiar with any of that. But one of the things that I really like about this character and the way that it's portrayed is it's a thriller. It's a pseudo-political military thriller. Political, not with, governments and presidents and attaches type of thing. But it is sort of dealing with the military and their reactions to things and whatever else. But one of the things that I liked about this portrayal of a character is that he's smart, he's capable, but he's not superhuman. He only has his wits and his training about him. And the way Cruise plays him it's it's very subtle and it's very playful. And he uses his words to get out of more situations than his fists. But man, if he's got to use his fists, what's nice about this character is that he is incredibly skilled. So when a group of teens try to beat him up because they were paid to accost him, he's like, okay, if you guys really want to do this, we'll do this. And then he just beats the shit out of all of them badly. It is so ugly. And they're like, what the hell is this? Because he immediately goes for the first guy and takes him out hard so that the rest of them are like, what do we do?
Yeah, off the game.
Yeah. And go ahead.
All that is why I wish The Rock had gotten that role, as it came down to the two of those from what I hear. And it would have been nice to see The Rock doing something in that vein while also fitting the description of the character a little bit more than Tom Cruise, because usually you see The Rock using muscles and ridiculousness to get out of situations, whereas I would have liked to have seen him tackle a role where he does use that subtlety and uses words to get out of stuff, kind of give him something more to act with.
They tried that with The Rundown, and I don't think people showed up for it. And he is so stuck to his brand of being this huge jack dude that can pull helicopters down using a chain that he's holding on to, Hobbs and Shaw, for those of you that haven't seen it. I don't know if he could have done Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher isn't supposed to look imposing. And if you look at The Rock, unless he actually reduced his muscle mass and thinned out, he'd be way too intimidating. You would buy him being able to take on all of these dudes. And there's one great fight sequence where Reacher's investigating a house. He gets attacked in a bathroom, and these two dudes are just... There's too many people in the bathroom for anybody to do anything. Mm-hmm. Reacher falls into a bathtub, and these dudes are trying to hit him, but they can't because he's in the tub, and their weapons won't hit into the tub. They're hitting, like, on the rim. Mm-hmm. So there's this lovely comedy because it's just... nobody's a professional doing any of this stuff. And The Rock falling into a bathtub, you could still hit him.
Yeah, but I just did a quick Google. Jack Reacher is supposed to be 6'5", 220 to 250 with a 50-inch chest. That definitely is more The Rock than it is Tom Cruise. Which, you gotta cast for star power. You gotta find the leading man. And in 2012, The Rock was getting there, but this could have been the movie that got him there, I think.
And I wonder if he would have been shy on it a little bit, because he did Faster, which is a fantastic dramatic work. It does involve a lot of fight sequences and him using his physicality, but the drama of the story is conveyed through some of the fights as well as a few other things. It is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Dwayne Johnson performances. And it went too far underseen that I think now he's doing sort of family-friendly, goofy action, whatever stuff.
Yeah.
Doing something that is even... I mean, this is a fairly serious action thriller with Jack Reacher. I don't know if people would show up for that. And it's a shame, because he's got the skill to do it.
Right on. Right on. Alrighty then. Well, my number one... what's your number one there, Douglas?
Wait.
I'm wondering if we might have the same number one here.
It's possible, because at least in my mind, there is only one performance by Cruise that is so beyond what he is typically known for, that it is so perfect and so wonderful. It comes from a 2008 film.
Okay, so we don't have the same number one.
We don't. Okay, then you first.
It's Top Gun, man. Of course it's Top Gun. Yeah. Top Gun Maverick is Tom Cruise. I don't care what anybody says. The character that is Maverick, the always striving for perfection and to do whatever it takes to get the job done, it's just an avatar for who he is. That is just basically, it's Tom Cruise in a nutshell. There's a reason, even if Top Gun didn't exist back in the 80s when it was made, if they were making Top Gun for the first time, right now, and they're like, we got to find the guy to play Maverick. I mean, it's Tom Cruise. It's Tom Cruise, just based on everything else he's done and his personality. It's got an awesome, stellar supporting cast. You got Scared up in there. You got I almost said Vanilla Ice. You got Val Kilmer's
Well,
the
different
Iceman.
Iceman. Different Iceman.
Different Iceman. All sorts of people up in that movie. And of course, you have the nebulous bad guys as well. It's a good Anthony Edwards as well. You get Meg Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Meg Ryan is Goose's wife.
Goose's wife.
Take me to bed and lose me forever. Show me the way home, honey.
I think this movie definitely, while the action is great, it still relies on character interactions.
Very much.
I mean, you can make fun of the volleyball scene all you want. It's still a well shot, great fun montage that gives you a look and an insight into these characters and the competition that these guys are in. Because I know fighter pilots; they are definitely jocks. They are the jocks of the military.
Yeah.
They
have to be to do what they're doing.
Pretty much. This is how they behave. This is how they interact. So they do very well with character interactions, and I think that goes a little bit overlooked when you're talking about the flashier elements of Top Gun. If you haven't rewatched, and Kenny Loggins putting in all the work with the music, just takes it from good and makes it great.
Came in at number 2. Number 1 is the Oscar-winning "Take My Breath Away."
Yeah, boom, 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 boom. All right, what is your number 1, sir?
Well, real quick before we get to mine, because people might have figured it out already when I dropped the year. And this goes for you, because I know you are slowly building a 4K collection. And for those of you that may be considering it, I honestly can't recommend enough the Top Gun 4K release that just came out. You were talking about, Daryl, who you would cast now. What's interesting is there's a new documentary. It's, I think, 5 parts. You can either watch them individually or just watch them as a whole. But it's got Jerry Bruckheimer and Tom Cruise jumping in and out, talking about the making of the film. And they've done some other documentaries that are also included from previous editions. But with this new one, Cruise mentions that, for one, he had it included in his contract that he could sit in on marketing meetings and character meetings and other things. That stuff had to be run through him. And it wasn't for a control issue. It was so that he could learn more about the process. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that he also made sure of is that not only was it required that if he were to take on the role of Maverick, that he would have to be shown on camera flying the plane, but that it would also have to be used in the film.
Yep.
There wasn't just, okay, let's placate the actor, we'll shoot him, and then, sorry, it doesn't make the cut. He wanted it in the movie because he knew that, one, it would be something to make the feel of the movie more authentic, but also that, two, the audience would go, oh my God, he's actually in the plane, mm-hmm. which makes the experience of watching the film as an audience member, not just for the story, but for the audience, just all that more incredible. And he said that he more or less alludes to the fact that people are used to him doing the stunt work now, hanging outside of the plane, and I think Rogue Nation. Mm. They weren't, what the hell are you doing, Tom? You can't do this stuff. So we wouldn't have the movies that we have now if not for him in, 85, asking to do this.
Yeah, people always scoff and laugh at it, but I have said for years now that Tom Cruise is the best entertainer of our generation when it comes to films, because he is that dedicated to the craft of film. I remember Lyman.
I would say the U.S. Jackie Chan's still
all right, yeah, that's true.
He's been doing it longer.
Lyman said that Tom is
Jackie Chan of America.
That's a wild bit of business. Lyman has said that there's often times where he would show up to set to film Edit Tomorrow, and Tom had already been on set for an hour or two. He was the last person to leave set. Like, he's just very involved in not just showing up, hitting his mark, saying his lines, and emoting like a lot of actors and actresses are, but he is very integrated with the process. And once you understand the process, it makes your part in the process that much easier to grasp and elevate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Top Gun is a phenomenal movie that holds up. It honestly holds up. I hadn't seen it in decades when I rewatched it, and I was still like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the fight sequences are still great. It doesn't matter that they're basically reusing the same shots over and over again. Yep. You're still all up in it. And I'm very curious about Maverick for a number of reasons. One, because I'm curious what Goose's son has to say about, hey, you threw my dad's dog tags into the ocean. Thanks for that, asshole. But also the fact that as they've been releasing in featurettes long before now, that Cruise insisted that the cast playing the fighter pilots actually get in the jets.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some of these, and I don't know if they themselves are learning to fly like Cruise did or something else, but in this one featurette, and it is hilariously amazing, you can see them just trying not to get sick as they get used to the G-forces
Yeah.
because they are shooting real footage while they're in there, which is leaps and bounds ahead of what Top Gun did back when it was first shot with Tony Scott. So yours is a fantastic number one.
Yes, I'm less excited than you are about Top Gun Maverick, but I'm more curious than I am excited.
Well, I would say my excitement comes from my curiosity.
Hmm.
I am interested in where this is going to go, how they're going to do it. It looks like it's capturing that same spirit of the first one. And what was interesting to find out in that documentary that was included, the featurette with a new release of Top Gun, is that Tom himself has now, he's like, we hit a bullseye that we didn't expect to hit with Top Gun. How do you replicate that? But for decades since, anytime he goes anywhere, it's, hey, would you sign this thing? And, oh, yeah, by the way, when are you doing a sequel to Top Gun? He has felt the pressure from fans around the globe for decades. They found a story. And so whether they hit the bullseye, who knows? But he at least claims to have a strong feeling, but it's also a marketing release. So what is he going to say? Well, we went for it. It's shit, but who knows? No, he's not going to say that. But I, for one, am definitely, my curiosity is quite piqued that I'm excited for it.
Right on. What is your number one, sir?
My number one is a film, as I was saying, that is so against type of what Tom has played that if this film comes on, I want to watch it. This film is so amazing in so many ways. But for Cruise, oh my God, it's amazing. It's Tropic Thunder. Absolutely Tropic Thunder.
I debated that, and I was like, well, that's not really a Tom Cruise movie. It's a movie that has him for two scenes.
Oh, it is more than two scenes. And what plays over the credits, sir? Him dancing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the apple bottom jeans there. I just couldn't in good conscience put this on because I don't feel like it is a Tom Cruise film. It is a Ben Stiller film to me with Tom Cruise as a guest appearance.
I will not lose any sleep over putting this film in the eventual obituary that Tom Cruise will have, having died on set trying to capture a shot for us, because Les Grossman is just so, I hesitate to call it iconic, but it is so singular of a performance in the characters that he has portrayed that it is so different from everything he has done. I'm not talking about cursing. I'm not talking about being offensive. I just mean so aggressive and so terrible of a person that he dominates the screen when he shows up. If there's anybody else in a film riddled with high caliber talent, you do not look anywhere else but Les Grossman. There is no one else in that shot than Les Grossman. And it is so beautiful of a casting that I don't remember if they advertised that Cruise was in it when they were doing trailers and everything else.
They did not.
That I was sitting there watching the movie and going, I think that's Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the good part of that movie is the slow realization over the theater. Because the person right beside me picked up on it maybe like a half a second before I picked up on it. And they're like, ah! And I was like, ah! And they're like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, you see that everybody's like, oh, wait a minute. Aha.
It is, I mean, and to find out that, and that's one of the things I love about Cruise as an actor. I'm not going to get into him personally because I don't know him personally, but as an actor, he seems so game to do anything that serves the story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there have been stories that on set, he's also done things to make sure that, like, he's he's evidently a very short gentleman who acts against
You
people much
don't
taller than him.
say.
And so there are rumors that he has done things to either in his costume or other people have done things to ensure that height differential isn't so pronounced. But with this film, he's like, make me ridiculous. Give me the biggest damn hands. Clownishly ridiculous. Make me so unrecognizable. And that's the kind of stuff that's great about him. That when Tom Cruise goes to do a movie, if he were to do something like a Hobbs and Shaw, it wouldn't be, okay, I need to be hit 5 times, which means the other guy needs to be hit 5 times. We need to be equal, and we need... No, it's about how do we serve the story, which is why Ethan Hunt gets beat to shit in almost ridiculous proportions.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have survived Fallout for a number of reasons. But Cruise goes for it with his performances. And in seeing something like Les Grossman, you really get the fact that this guy will do it if it makes sense for the camera, if it makes sense for the story.
I like how you said he wouldn't survive Fallout. Like he would survive the first Mission Impossible, jumping from an exploding helicopter onto a moving train. But, you know, it's Tom Cruise and he survives these things.
He's Ethan Hunt. We don't know. He might bruise some ribs. I'm just saying. But he falls out of that plane in Fallout and like his whole face should just be broken.
Yes, agreed.
And I'm not just talking about the radiation from whatever other instances he's been in, but that's a whole other conversation.
Whole other thing, yes.
But yeah, Tropic Thunder for me is my number one. Is
right
my
on.
Total and absolute number one.
Very nice.
So do we have time? I forgot to start a timer. Do we have time for challenges?
Oh, we are already over an hour. So let's do it and make it quick.
Okay. You challenged me to watch Running with the Devil.
Running with the Devil.
I wish it were that badass and cool. It was very different than I expected. I've heard of the film. I know someone who's reviewed the film and wasn't quite a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
Written and directed by Jason Cabell, I believe. That's how you pronounce it.
First time I'd heard his name.
I found it interesting because it seems to be more a story about how drugs go from point A to point B than about the characters themselves.
Yes.
And it is a cast that is high caliber, as I mentioned before. Nicolas Cage, Leslie Bibb, Cole Hauser, Lawrence Fishburne, Peter Facinelli, Adam Goldberg, Clifton Collins Jr., just to name a few people in this film. And they're all in roles that are, in some cases, minor and in some cases not. Who they are makes no difference. They have characters like the cook, agent in charge, the executioner, the man, the snitch, the farmer, the boss, the collector. They are archetypes. Who they are is irrelevant. It's only what role they play in the distribution of growing the coca flower or whatever it is, turning it into powder, and then getting it from, I think, some area of Colombia to the U.S. and seeing how it changes hands. And the whole story is more or less about, on the Fed side, a family member gets overdoses and dies, so a Fed is like, we're burning these whole suckers to the ground.
Right on.
Whereas Nick Cage comes in as the cook because some drugs have gone missing and we need to figure out how. There is no happy ending at any part of this, which is particularly fascinating. It's not about romancing or making positive, sexy in any form, this stuff. There is no happy ending.
It's bleak and brutal.
It is. And I found it to be particularly interesting. It wasn't, I would recommend it, but in the sense of it is a fascinating watch, not necessarily an entertaining one.
Yes, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think you're dead on with it. It doesn't romanticize, kind of like Traffic, like Scarface at times romanticizes that bit of business. It is somewhat departed light, I think, in some ways. But yeah, I thought I'd heard a couple of not great things going into it. So I don't know if it's because I had set a low bar of expectation, but there were some parts I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or this is pleasantly surprising. It kept me entertained all throughout, up until the very end. And I was like, oh, no. I thought, I thought some people might make it out of this, but no. And I did not realize that Clifton Collins Jr. was in it. So when he popped on screen, I was like, sold on the rest of this movie, because I love any time Clifton Collins Jr. pops up in the scene.
He is fantastic.
Yeah, I would also recommend this to people, but only certain people would I recommend this to. But overall, it was much better than I thought it was going to be. And I love seeing Lawrence Fishburne in that skeezy ass role that he plays.
God, it was terrible.
He was a horrible, horrible human being in that, and I loved every bit of it.
And as an actor, he seemed to relish it as well.
Oh yeah, he enjoyed
really did
playing
seem to
that.
just go for it. And
between that and the Bowery King, I think he's just been loving playing these skeezy over the top type characters.
Oh, and the Bowery King there is no top. There is no top to go over with the Bowery King.
He's trying to find
it.
He
is the Bowery. There is no throne. I can't ever match that deep
baritone. Oh. Yeah. But it is a decent film. I know you balked a little bit at this idea, but
what did I balk at though? Let's tell everyone what I balked at. Was it that you gave me Running with the Devil?
It seems half and half. It seems that A, it was the fact that it was Running with the Devil, and B, the fact that I had also not seen this film.
It was more that way.
As you have said a number of times, it's a good chance to plug in blind spots. And this is a blind spot for both of us. So I figured, why not?
The rules state movies we haven't seen. That's fine. Speaking of movies you haven't seen, how was Rampant?
It was, I think it's in the same vein. I went in with one expectation and I was like, this could have been shit. Because these are two genres you don't really combine. You don't really combine martial arts with zombie joints. That's just not, that's not how physics works.
I don't know. There's apparently a very successful show on Netflix called Kingdom that does exactly that.
That's true. But it elevated. It turned into what could have been a ridiculous plot to a focus on this dude is one of those I'm shirking my responsibility for as long as I possibly can until I have to embrace and become what is needed of me in order for others to survive and flourish throughout down the road. Very good piece. The basic premise of during the quote unquote kung fu era of the timepiece, zombies or just face chewing people are spreading
demons.
Demons, as they are called in this. They are spreading their zombiness, and the capital is kind of hesitating to believe that is something that is happening, which rightfully so. That's not something you hear about in everyday life, so it would be hard to grasp that
there's
concept.
Not a strange virus taking over the country? I've never heard of such a thing.
A strange virus causing people to do this, especially.
It's very different.
Yeah. So yeah, they're a little bit slow on the uptake, and things kind of progress from there. Great character development throughout this, and you see people who I thought were just kind of come in and out and help out for a scene or something like that, kind of eventually elevate their stock throughout the movie as well to become one of this band of people who has to do their best at stopping this thing, and the whole purpose is we have to contain this as much as possible. And in that chaos is, of course, anytime there's chaos, there's an opportunity to grab power. Littlefinger, that's his whole purpose in the Game of Thrones. And there's somebody trying to do that in this as well. So on top of containing something that can wipe out everything, you also have to deal with this asshole doing asshole things. Very, very well done movie. Rampant.
One thing I would point out just as a difference for the zombie genre, as this takes place during the I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm sure, the Qing Dynasty, Qing, is the fact that with these zombies, they're allergic to light.
Yeah, that's what Leslie made the comparison, that they are part zombie, part vampire. Mm-hmm. So the fact that during the daytime they're relatively safe. because they're not going to, they're not going to come out and attack you. And then as soon as that sun drops, man, it's on and popping. So it's a good way to give the characters and the story itself time to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a good way for this asshole trying to grab power. That's when he's making a lot of his power plays, is during the daytime. So it's like, all right, well, we got to fight these things from fucking sundown till sunup. And then this asshole from sunup to sundown is trying his own shit. It is a tiring movie.
Yeah. And it plays very, very well. It's, I think, currently available on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I recommend it. I quite enjoyed it when I watched it, I think, last year. Mm-hmm. So
good
there
movie.
You go.
Good movie, sir. All right. You got anything else, or is that about it?
I think you said we have gone over our usual time. I think we have given the people plenty.
We've given the people plenty, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for episode 31 of the Cinnamon, man. And
halfway to 60.
We are at the halfway point to 60, where we promise we will talk about Primer 2, the sequel you didn't know existed.
Electric Boogaloo.
Primer 2, Electric Boogaloo. Dancing Through Time, I do believe, is the subtitle. So yeah, that's it, man. Hopefully we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a little bit more cinnamony goodness for you.
Sounds like a wonderful plan.
All right.
Be well, everybody.
Be well, stay safe, and watch more movies.